Kia ora, Sully. Thank you very much for having us here by your workshop today. Lots of your pieces around us. Tell me about the exhibition. How did that come about?
Well, first of all, welcome to our hood, Susie, and your team. My journey began 5 years ago during the COVID lockdown. That the idea came and started from there, and then to where it is today. I never thought it would come to that point, because it's something that started here. It was basically for my well-being and my learning about my history, my culture, and I never realized that it created something that would take off. Like it's been really good. Has a lot of inquiries. Curious people want to learn more about their canoe, their culture, and so it's been a very interesting, fascinating journey.
Which I really want to hear more about and how you got to this point. I guess first of all though, tell me about what people will see if they go to the exhibition and some of the vaka that are included.
I've heard many stories. I've heard particularly the older generation that have grown up from the Pacific and has some connection with the canoe culture. It's like walking in the door and the switch comes on and you can see them beaming and smiling and said, I remember that the stories came, telling me stories about their fathers, their uncles, their relatives, their experience in going into the ocean on the canoes. So they tell the stories, the name of the canoes. That was great for me. That really just, that's what it's all about for me. It's touching on that history that we are slowly losing.
Because what does that mean to you to be able to recreate these vaka in miniature? That's
what it was all about. That's how it all began. Because I want to know, I grew up, and the neighbors that I grew up in, I always hear banging, like you hear banging next door. I always hear banging all the time, and they were digging the canoes, making canoes. And I was fortunate to be able to grow up in that environment and see firsthand what they do. And not only that, but the sharing of the fish in the village where I grew up was all part of that. So I didn't forget it. I remember those times. And I never thought that canoe will eventually become a part of my life, and until one day it came back. I began to hear those thumpings again. I hear those logs being chopping, and also the conversation of the people that are around it that are building it. So yeah, it came back, and then it was then that I began to slowly move into that direction of I'd like to make a canoe, a model, and it just established from there, and then eventually it become an obsession. It took over me.
I guess, when do you think that banging, when did that first begin for you? You said it was about 4 or 5 years ago that you actually really got into the carving, but when did you hear that calling?
I went to visit to Niue, my homeland, and it sparks from there. I saw the children that I work with, they bring their school project, which is canoes, and then I began to open that area up to help them and do their stuff, and it was then that I hear those banging. I began to hear those conversations. It was then that I began to hear what people are talking about, the environment, when to fish, when not to fish, and the talk about the weather, the stars, the moon, the clouds, the birds, all that stuff. I learned all that stuff, listening to the men's conversation, but never really thought much about it until when I began to hear those bangings again. All that came back, all that knowledge came back, and so that's how I got back into eventually the position where I thought I need to do this. And so, yeah, pre-lockdown, it finally happened.
And I guess COVID lockdown gave you the time to pursue the obsession.
Yeah, well, you're not going anywhere. You're locked up in your own house, so you can't go anywhere. So I thought, well, here's a good time to, so I started doing something then. And it just eventually, gradually take off from there. And it does something to me during that time, mentally, spiritually, and taught me some very good lessons as well along the way. First, I have this gift of being able to do something like this. But yeah, I surprised myself that I can do this.
What are some of those spin-off benefits, I guess, that you get from spending the time working with the wood?
Learning about our history, where our ancestors come from. I got really interested in that side of things. I've discovered about our history from my homeland, Niue. Our nation is made up of a group from Samoa, Tonga, and a small group from Puka Puka, which is the Cook Islands. And so I got curious to know, how do they travel? What sort of canoes, and how do they build these? How do they make it there? I got curious in it and slowly got look into it and start doing a little bit of research. Not much, but just enough to give me some answers. And that is enough to get me started. I thought, whoa, I want to find out more about this. I want to start making this, and then gradually to a point where I'm confident enough to be able to make the canoes similar to those that brought our ancestors to our nations. And what I have discovered then is another world that we have lost.
How did you get started? How did you get the tools? How did you get the different kinds of wood? How did you physically get going? Did you know what you were making?
Well, at first, it was trying to do something that I want to do, but I don't know how. So, just get on and do it. And I guess I have in me the ability to be able to do things, to do what I want to do, and not to be faced by any issue, including tools. And so I started from there, creating little stuff, and it gets better and better. I do have some before and after stuff when I first started. You can see the difference. So I get better every time I make a piece, and that was 5 years ago. So fast forward to today I can make a piece. I can make it's like an artist that had been doing painting for how many years, and then to a point where you can almost paint with your eyes closed. I've created that ability to be able to do things, that ability to be able to be detailed about a piece that I make, and yeah, I've learned that along the way. So
you're self-taught?
Yeah,
carving.
I taught myself.
Yeah.
I taught myself, and that's the thing that surprises me, is that I wish that someone had told me before that I'm good at this. Yeah, I'm surprised myself and say, well, why didn't I do this a long time ago? I would have made money. But at this point in my life, I realized, whoa, I would have loved to have done this a long time ago. But now it's I don't focus on the money side. I'm focusing on learning, knowledge, and pass that knowledge on, education purpose.
Which is something you've done for four decades? Getting on to that.
40, lost count of years, 40,
years?
yeah, 40-something years of working with youth.
Yeah.
I've lived here in Ōtara for a long time, and I began my journey in 1979 as a youth worker. But I have a passion for youth, and so that's where my journey began. And along the way, I've learned to do stuff because I have to, because nobody's going to do it for you. If I want to do something, it's not going to stop me because I don't have any yet. You just have to learn. You have to learn to swim. So along the way, I've learned the skills. I taught myself to do things, pretty much. And learn with those that are around me as well. So So it's been a very exciting journey of learning and discovering myself.
Which we'll dive into a little bit later as well, I think. But just if we hit rewind for a moment, tell us about growing up in Niue.
Just like everywhere else in the world, they all have their problems. Great place, but my early childhood is not the best, and I just touched a little bit on that. It wasn't the best growing up. My life was a mess pretty much right from the very beginning. But the area that I work with, one thing I learned from that come out from there is that I learned how to work. I understand what work ethic is, and to get things done, you have to do it yourself. So that's the one thing that I can say I come out of growing up in Niue. I come up with that. I'm very thankful.
When you say growing up, your childhood wasn't the best, are you able to give us a sense of in what way?
I'll just give you a brief, just a tiny little glimpse of growing up. I was raised by another family in another village, and right from when I was young, a baby pretty much, raised in that environment. But the environment was very harsh. Growing up with a relative, during that environment that I went through a lot of abuse, all kinds of abuse. That messed me up pretty much my whole young life. Until I was old enough to run away and left that life behind. So.
And you came to Aotearoa?
Well, I met up with my grandfather, who has been in Aotearoa for many years. This is back in the 50s. I met up with him in the 60s, and he told me about the land of milk and honey. I said, well, I want to jump on board and I'll go with you. I want to get some of that milk and honey stuff. And I came with him, but I didn't find the milk and honey. I found the Lion Red and rock and roll and everything that comes with it. And all the whiskey that you can drink. So that was my life. Went straight into that environment of alcohol and became an alcoholic. To a point where I had no life at all. 7 days, drink, that's all I live for. Yeah. And until I hit rock bottom, and it was pretty tough. Totally lost. By the grace of God, something happened in the spiritually that pulled me out of where I was at the time. Can I say, I had an encounter with the Almighty God that changed my life totally. Took me in the direction where I am today. And
what are you able to describe what happened when you had this awakening?
I was, like I said, I live for parties, drink. That's it. That's 7 days a week. I get paid on Thursday, broke on Friday, borrow on Saturday, steal the rest of the week to make it through to the next payday. Lives pretty much in the pub, parties, and that was my life. So I was an alcoholic until I don't want to live anymore. And I guess God's grace and love and mercy, and He turned up to my place, and through a dream, I had a bad dream that I was going to go in the place where I don't want to be. So, but that changed me. I woke up the next day and I knew that something had happened. Put me in a journey where I ended up becoming a youth worker.
Yeah. So you walked away from the drink, from the crime, from the gangs?
Gangs, yeah. That life. I didn't actually walk away. I had supernatural help to get me out of there. I would not have been able to do it myself. There's no way in this world that I was stuck, absolutely stuck, and there's no way out. That's why I came to a point where I might as well go and shoot myself. And it was that point of desperation that I had divine help. and pulled me out of there, and has been to this day, hasn't changed. And that's the only reason why I'm here today. Otherwise, I would have been dead a long time ago. But I have that divine help and it guided me all the way. And the reason why I decided to go back and work with youth is because that's the world that I came from. And I saw my mates, my friends that was in the gangs, go in the same direction I was going. Nobody's doing anything about it. So I decided I want to do something, and that's what I want to do. That's how I ended up in. And when I started, there was no money in it. There's no pay. So I work a full-time job during the day. In the evenings, I'm out on connecting with kids, and gradually from there build a youth center in East Tamaki area that began my journey in 1979. So yeah, pretty much built from there. That's why I went to youth work, because I came out of there. You know, I've got something. I want to help my friends and the community.
And one of the ways you did that, I think, was, I mean, it comes back to working with your hands, actually. There's lots of fixing up of motorbikes and bikes. Bikes,
and as you can still see, they're all buried under here, down at the back there. They're still very much a part of my journey. It's my way of connecting with kids, like kids with bikes. They're always here fixing their bikes. They're always doing something, and I discover from there that what kids want to do is doing something. They want to do something. They want to do something practically. I hear conversation many times of kids coming here doing stuff, and I can listen to their conversation, and I can tell from there what they want, what their desires are, and being in schools as well. So they ask me many times, why didn't the schools do this in the schools? This is more fun. They're having more fun and doing things practically.
I guess young people quite often get a bit of a bad rap, and people talk about it as a problem that needs to be solved, and what to do with, you know, the youth of today, in inverted commas. Whereas I don't think that's how you see rangatahi and young people.
Well, I haven't come across any bad kid. I'm looking at myself and learning from myself. I wasn't a bad kid. I was just in a bad place, in an environment where, why didn't people do this to me? Why didn't they? What I'm doing now to kids out there is what I wish someone had done when I was growing up. There are a lot of good kids that I've had here. We sit here, we talk, and their walls come down and tell me their story. Same thing. The environment that they live in, toxic. The homes that they come in, toxic. So I can identify with that, because I grew up in that environment. Alcoholics, alcohol, what alcohol does, drugs, what drugs do. And you know, good kids turn bad because of the environment that they live in. They're not born like that. You know, I see kids that had been messed up. I see kids that are growing up, beautiful kids, and watch them going down that road to disaster.
So what do you see as the situation now? Because, you know, we hear about the numbers in gangs going up. How to tackle this from your perspective? What needs to be done?
It's a huge mountain to move, this one. And you know, from how I see it, it's not getting any better. We failed. We failed as parents. We failed as the government, the system. We failed in doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're not doing it all. And I'm speaking in my own community. You know, by now, I wish I could say that things are getting better. But from my observation and what I've seen, live here, worked here. I'm saddened about a community that is very neglected. You go down to the shopping center, even today, you will see guys selling drugs down there, in open, right out in the open. Kids are failing school, and there's only one road for them, and that is the gangs to sell drugs. Our education systems failed. Everywhere, I see the gateway to the gangs is getting bigger and bigger, and you see more and more kids heading in that direction. Kids that I have grown up with, the little kids now, I see them in that direction. This community has been left to their own device, and so that's my big concern is the future. I don't see a good future here for a lot of our kids.
Because there isn't the will
No, there's no
to change, to do the right things?
There has to be some changes. There has to be better policing. The police need to make some changes in don't just drive around here in cars and hey, come and connect with, live in community, be with this community, and the education system needs to change. We need to change the way we do things. What works yesterday won't work today. Right now, I think there's so many kids that I know that are not going to school, and you know very well that they won't have any life. The only school that they'll know is to learn how to sell drugs.
So connecting rangatahi with their culture, as you are connecting with your vaka and the carving, what's the value of something like that?
Oh, from what I have discovered, I think, like I said to you before, it need to be. It's really important. It's important to know who we are, our identity as people. We're lost in a world that is not us, and we need to find ourselves. So I think doing what I'm doing, giving them a glimpse of who we are.
It's big stuff and it's hard to solve, but again and again, certainly anecdotally if nothing else, you often hear that if people connect with their culture, if they're able to know who they are, where they're from, it is transformative.
Yeah, it is. It is. But yeah, it goes back to how I see us as community moving forward is that us as community, number one, is to become to unite and force. Sadly, that is not. We're very, because of fundings, government funds this group and that group and this one and that one is not funded. So there's some, it's kind of divide us. I think that fundings in community should come into one source, and from there they can be able to work. The funding issues is a big issue. So, and sometimes they fund, money goes into groups who done nothing. So there need to be a united force in community, and community to come together. And we're kind of doing that in a little bit, but we still a lot more work to do. That community come together and put our heads together. I'd like to think that Ōtara is somewhere in that environment. We haven't got it correct, haven't got it right yet, so that we can have a bigger voice rather than have a small voices. We need to be a united force and speak as one and work together. That's what we need right now, is that unity, oneness before anything happens, so that we can all work together. So, I like to see that. That's my biggest desire, is that our community will have one voice. And when funding comes, it comes into the Ōtara community, not to a section that are not going to be doing anything. When you look at, there'll be something for you to look in the future, and groups that are funded, big money to, what have they done? Show me what you've done. I observe and watch and say, man, what a waste of taxpayers' dollars to go into just to write reports and tick boxes. And I expect more than that.
I guess from your perspective, with the work that you're doing, I guess with all of the work that you're doing, what are your next hopes? You were talking about the creek at the back there. What might end up there one day, do you think? Do you hope?
I like to establish an education. I want to build a school. I was influential in started the alternative education in Aotearoa in '96. Started at the back here with the kids that I work with. I asked them, why are you not going to school? They told me their reason. So I said, well, if I start a school, would you come? And straight away they said, yes, we'll come. And sure enough, so that's how alternative education started. We built from there. Sadly, it went back to the system that had failed in the first place and failed again. So I don't know where the alternative education is today. But it worked for us at that time because we weren't funded. A lot of kids came and they didn't want to go back to school. And the school came, they got in trouble because I'm harboring kids who are not going to school. And I said, well, why is it that they're coming to my place and not going to school? I said, go and ask them. And so we built alternative ed back then quite strongly. And then it ended up back in the system because they funded. Now I'm back in the position where there's so many kids that are not going to school. And I believe I can do that again. But this time with a difference, with a strong cultural aspect to it. The carving and the practical stuff, the learning. And that's my next phase. That's the direction I'd like to think where I'm heading. And I'm at that position now where I'm ready to happen. It's ready to happen. It's just finding a facility. Funding's, I'm not going to wait for any fundings to come. We're just going to start with no funds because the kids are already there. And voluntary, and we want to build it because I want to show the system that the need and what's relevant for the day, the important things that we need to do today that'll work. The things that we did yesterday won't work today. Throw away that stuff and bring in things that are relevant for today. So the cultural thing is, it'd be fun to build a canoe and go sail. Yeah. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn about maths. You'll learn about science. You'll learn about physics. You'll learn about everything. Yeah. So, and we've done it in a small way here in our creek, and so that's our vision for the future. Is that, vision is journey with the canoes.
I reckon you might just do it. Hey, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you, Sully.